Hi, welcome to my channel. How are you? I hope you're doing well. Sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and take a journey into medieval history. Please subscribe to my channel and leave a comment. While the frozen edges of the world demanded fur and fire, another vast stretch of the medieval world faced the opposite extreme. Across the deserts of Persia, the plains of North Africa, the river valleys of India, and the sun-baked cities of the Mediterranean, heat was not an occasional inconvenience, but a constant, punishing force, one capable of killing as surely as any Arctic winter. Summer temperatures in the Iranian plateau and the deserts of Arabia regularly climbed past 45 degrees Celsius. And in a world without electricity, without refrigeration, and without any mechanical way to move or cool the air, surviving that heat required the same kind of accumulated, generational knowledge that Arctic peoples had built around the cold. This is the story of how medieval societies, across several continents, engineered their way through some of the hottest environments on Earth, not through brute endurance, but through architecture, water management, and a deep working knowledge of how heat itself behaves. Nowhere was this knowledge more refined than in the deserts of Persia, in cities like Yazd, where builders faced a brutal combination of blistering daytime heat and almost no seasonal rainfall. Their solution was a device now known as the windcatcher, a tall tower rising above the rooftops of the city, built to capture even the faintest breeze and funnel it down into the rooms below. The tallest windcatchers in Yazd rose more than 30 meters into the sky, their shafts divided into separate channels, so that no matter which direction the wind blew, at least one opening could catch it and drive it downward into the building. As the moving air descended through the tower, it passed across pools of water drawn up from underground channels, and through the simple, ancient principle of evaporation, the air arrived in the living spaces below noticeably cooler than the scorching air outside. Persian builders had been refining this idea for well over 1,000 years by the time medieval Yazd reached its height, and the concept spread outward along trade routes, carried by merchants and travelers into Egypt, where it became known as the Malkaf, and eventually into the wider Islamic world, from the Persian Gulf to the cities of North Africa, each region adapting the basic principle of the windcatcher to its own particular climate and materials. The windcatcher alone could not have kept a desert city livable. It worked in close partnership with another remarkable feat of medieval engineering, the Qanat, an underground channel that carried water for many kilometers from mountain aquifers down into the heart of a city, entirely by gravity, without a single pump or moving part. Digging a qanat was slow, dangerous work, carried out by specialized crews who sank a chain of vertical shafts along the tunnel's planned route, then connected them underground with a gently sloping channel carved by hand through rock and packed earth. Because the water flowed below the surface, shielded from the punishing desert sun, it arrived in the city cool, and largely free of the evaporation losses that would have doomed an open canal in the same climate. At the point where a qanat reached its destination, engineers often built a dam, partially underground reservoir called an ambanbar, and connected it, in turn, to windcatchers positioned specifically to draw air down across the water's surface. The effect was a form of cooling that predated mechanical air conditioning by many centuries, achieved entirely through the physics of moving air, evaporating water, and the simple fact that earth and stone, shielded from direct sun, hold their temperature far more steadily than the air above them. Ordinary homes across the medieval Islamic world, even those without a private windcatcher, were built around the same underlying principles. Thick walls made of mud brick or stone provided enormous thermal mass, absorbing the day's heat slowly and releasing it slowly overnight, which meant that interior rooms often remained noticeably cooler than the streets outside for most of the afternoon, even without any mechanical assistance at all. Windows were kept small and were frequently positioned to avoid direct sunlight, while carved wooden or stone screens, known in various regions as mashrabia, allowed air to pass through while blocking the sun's direct glare, creating shaded, dappled interior light and a slow, steady current of ventilation. Homes were commonly organized around a central courtyard, open to the sky, but shielded by the surrounding walls of the building itself, and often planted with a tree or centered on a small fountain. During the hottest hours of the day, the courtyard's shade and the light evaporation from any standing water combined to create a noticeably cooler pocket of air, one that could then be drawn into the surrounding rooms through carefully placed doors and windows. As the sun set and the desert air cooled rapidly, the same thick walls that had blocked the daytime heat now radiated their stored warmth back out into the cooling night, and many families would move up to flat rooftops to sleep, catching whatever breeze moved across the city after dark. Well above, the residual heat still trapped at street level, hard to be opened. Across the Arabian Peninsula and the wider desert belt of the Middle East, the peoples who lived outside the great cities faced an even more direct and unshielded version of the same challenge, without thick stone walls or underground canals to rely upon. Bedouin communities, moving across open desert with their herds, developed an entirely different, portable strategy for survival built around clothing, tents, and an intimate understanding of when and how to move across the land. Their tents, woven from goat or camel hair into a dense, dark fabric known as Beit al-Sher, or House of Hair, might seem at first like an unlikely choice for a hot climate, since dark fabric absorbs sunlight readily. In practice, the tightly woven hair fibers block direct sun from penetrating to the interior at all, while the same tight weave allowed a slow, steady flow of air to pass directly through the fabric itself, carrying accumulated heat away from the tent's interior throughout the day. The material also had the useful property of swelling and tightening when struck by rain, sealing the tent against the desert's rare, but often intense downpours, while loosening again in dry weather to restore its natural ventilation. Clothing followed a similar, counterintuitive logic. Rather than minimizing coverage, desert dwellers typically wore loose, flowing robes that covered nearly the entire body, made from lightweight woven fabric, most often wool or cotton, depending on the region and the resources available. The looseness of the garment was the key to its effectiveness. Air trapped between the body and the loose outer fabric acted as an insulating layer, slowing the transfer of heat from the punishing outside air to the skin, while simultaneously allowing perspiration to evaporate freely and carry heat away from the body, a natural cooling process that direct sun on exposed skin would have disrupted entirely. Head coverings, such as the keffiyeh worn across much of the Arab world, served a similar dual purpose, shading the head, face, and neck from direct sun while allowing air to circulate freely underneath, and could be wrapped more tightly across the face during sandstorms to filter out blowing dust. And sand. Timing mattered as much as clothing or shelter. Across nearly every heat-adapted culture of the medieval world, from the deserts of Arabia to the plains of North Africa, daily life was organized around the sun's punishing midday peak rather than against it. The heaviest labor, travel, and trade were concentrated into the cooler hours of early morning and evening, while the hours surrounding midday were reserved for rest, shade, and stillness, a pattern that would eventually be formalized in many Mediterranean and Middle Eastern societies as a structured midday rest period. Caravan travel across the open desert followed the same logic on a larger scale. Merchant caravans crossing the Sahara or the Arabian interior typically move through the night, and the cool hours of morning, guided by stars and long familiarity with the terrain, then race through the hottest part of the day in whatever shade could be found, whether natural rock formations, palm groves at desert oases, or simply the shadow cast by their own resting camels and tents. Water management governed the entire rhythm of the journey, since a caravan's survival depended entirely on reaching the next known well or oasis before its carried water supply ran out, a calculation that left almost no margin for error, and that depended on generations of accumulated geographic knowledge carried forward through oral tradition among experienced guides. Part 3. Far to the east, across the river plains and arid regions of medieval India, a different but equally sophisticated response to extreme heat took shape below ground rather than above it. Beginning in the early medieval period and reaching a particular height of architectural ambition between roughly the 11th and 16th centuries, communities across Gujarat, Rajasthan, and the region around Delhi built elaborate stepped wells, known locally as Bauli or Bowery, structures that descended many stories beneath the surface to reach the water table far below. Unlike a simple vertical well, from which water had to be laboriously hauled upward by rope, a step well allowed people to walk directly down a long, layered descent of stone steps and pillared galleries to reach the water itself, however far the seasonal water table happened to sit. These structures served a practical purpose that went well beyond simple water access. As visitors descended through the successive stories of a stepwell, moving deeper below the desert surface, the surrounding stone walls and the standing water below created a noticeably cooler microclimate, often measurably many degrees cooler than the blistering air at street level above. The combination of deep shade, thick stone mass, and the slow evaporation of standing water functioned, in effect, as a natural cooling chamber, and stepwells across medieval India commonly included covered pavilions and resting galleries positioned at intervals down the descent, specifically so that travelers and local residents could pause, rest, and escape the heat of the day in relative comfort. Carved stone lattice screens, known as jolly, were frequently set into the walls and window openings of these pavilions, a technique that served the same essential purpose as the wooden screens of the Middle East, filtering and dispersing direct sunlight while still allowing air to circulate and, in some documented cases, measurably cooling the air passing through the fine stone openings by several additional degrees. Beyond their function as places of physical relief from the heat, stepwells also became important community and religious spaces, often adorned with carved shrines and sculptural details, serving as gathering points where travelers, merchants, and local residents alike could rest, socialize, and take shelter together during the punishing months of the pre-monsoon summer, when temperatures across much of the Indian subcontinent reached their most extreme annual peak. Part 4. Even in regions of the medieval world not defined by true desert conditions, extreme seasonal heat still shaped daily life, architecture, and even diet in ways that reflected a hard-won, practical understanding of the human body's limits. Across the Mediterranean world, from southern Europe to North Africa, medieval builders continued architectural traditions, inherited in part from the Roman world, favoring thick masonry walls, small windows on sun-facing sides, and interior courtyards that mirrored, in simpler form, the same principles refined more elaborately in Persia and the wider Islamic world. Public fountains, a common feature of Mediterranean towns and cities, served a dual purpose beyond the obvious one of providing drinking water, since the presence of moving, evaporating water in a public square where measurably lowered the surrounding air temperature, turning marketplaces and gathering points into some of the more tolerable outdoor spaces during the hottest hours of a summer day. Diet, too, adapted to the demands of extreme heat, guided by practical, observed experience even in societies with no formal understanding of human physiology, as we understand it today. Heavy, Dense foods eaten in large quantities during the hottest parts of the day were widely understood, across many heat-adapted cultures, to leave the body sluggish and overheated, and lighter meals, often built around fresh or lightly prepared fruit, yogurt, and diluted drinks, became a common feature of midday eating in hot climates from the Mediterranean to the Indian subcontinent. In the Islamic world, chilled or iced drinks became a particular mark of comfort, and even luxury among those who could afford them, made possible by another remarkable feat of medieval engineering, the yakhchal, a domed structure built in Persia specifically to store ice and snow through the punishing heat of summer. Built with thick, specially formulated insulating walls, and often paired with a wind catcher of its own to encourage internal air circulation, a well-built yakhchal could preserve ice gathered from mountain snowfields, or produced through a clever technique of nighttime radiative cooling in shallow pools, keeping it frozen for months at a time, even as outside temperatures soared past 40 degrees Celsius, allowing Persian cities to enjoy chilled drinks and preserve food across the full length of the summer season, centuries before the invention of mechanical refrigeration. Anywhere in the world, water itself, in every heat-adapted medieval society, was treated as the single most precious and carefully managed resource available, since dehydration in extreme heat could kill within a matter of hours, far faster than hunger or almost any other environmental threat. Cities built elaborate systems of cisterns, aqueducts, and underground channels, specifically to ensure a stable water supply through the driest and hottest months of the year, and traditions of hospitality across the desert world often centered explicitly on the offering of water to travelers. Practical necessity elevated, in many cultures, into a matter of moral and religious obligation. This constant, careful attention to water was not born of abstract virtue alone. It reflected an unsentimental, accurate understanding, refined over centuries of direct experience, that in extreme heat, water management was quite literally a matter of life and death, deserving the same disciplined seriousness that Arctic peoples applied to the management of fuel, fat, and fur in their own opposite struggle against the cold. Part 5. Farther south, across the savannas and trading cities of medieval West Africa, communities faced blistering heat, with almost none of the stone or running water available to builders in Persia or India, and so they turned instead to the one material available everywhere across the region in enormous quantity, earth itself. Beginning at least as early as the 11th century and reaching a particular peak of sophistication in the great trading cities of the Mali and Songhai empires, builders across the Sahel developed what is now known as Sudano-Sahelian architecture, a tradition built almost entirely from sun-dried mud brick, shaped and stacked into thick, load-bearing walls capable of absorbing the day's punishing heat slowly and releasing it gradually overnight, in much the same way that thick stone walls functioned in the deserts of Persia and Arabia. The most famous surviving example, the Great Mosque of Djenné in present-day Mali, whose origins trace back to the 13th or 14th century, remains the largest mud brick building on Earth, its walls studded with a distinctive pattern of protruding wooden beams known as toron, which served specific practical purpose beyond mere decoration. They provided a permanent, built-in scaffolding, allowing the entire community to climb the walls each year during a communal festival of replastering, refreshing the building's mud surface before the rains of the wet season could erode it away. Homes in trading cities like Djenné and Timbuktu were commonly built 2 stories high, arranged around a small central courtyard in a pattern that echoed, independently, the same courtyard logic found across the deserts of the Middle East, with flat roofs that could be used for sleeping during the hottest nights of the year and thick walls that kept interior rooms measurably cooler than the open street outside. Because mud brick required no imported material and no specialized quarrying, this architectural tradition allowed entire cities, including major centers of trade and Islamic scholarship such as Timbuktu, to be built and continuously maintained using only local resources, sun, water, and labor, refined over centuries into a building method perfectly matched to the extreme heat of the Sahel. Part 6. Medieval understanding of heat was not confined to architecture alone. Physicians across the Islamic world and medieval Europe, drawing heavily on the much older Greek medical tradition associating with Hippocrates, and later, the physician Galen, understood the human body through a framework of 4 fluids, or humors, each one associated with a particular combination of heat, cold, moisture, and dryness. Illness, in this framework, was understood as a disturbance in the natural balance among these humors, and the change of seasons was believed to shift that balance in predictable ways, with the wet heat of summer thought to increase the humor known as blood, itself associated with heat and moisture. Whatever the accuracy of the underlying theory by modern medical standards, the practical guidance that grew out of it, refined over centuries of close clinical observation, frequently aligned with what would later be understood as genuinely sound advice for surviving extreme heat. Physicians commonly advised patients to favor foods classified as cooling and moist during the hottest months of the year, including cucumbers, melons, and other water-rich fruits, to reduce heavy meat and spice in the diet, to rest during the hottest hours of the day, and to avoid excessive physical exertion when the air itself felt dangerously hot, guidance that mirrored, through an entirely different theoretical framework, the same basic behavioral adaptations practiced by desert-dwelling communities who had never read a word of Galen. In the great hospitals of the medieval Islamic world, known as bimaristans, patients suffering from fevers and other heat-associated conditions were placed in dedicated wards and given individually prepared diets built around these same cooling foods, prepared in what amounted to a specialized therapeutic kitchen operating according to the accepted medical science of the age. Though later medicine would reveal the humoral framework itself to be fundamentally mistaken about the body's inner workings, the accumulated practical wisdom built on top of it, about rest, hydration, and diet in extreme heat, often held up remarkably well, a reminder that useful, life-preserving knowledge can sometimes take root and spread even within a theoretical system that later generations would set aside entirely. Part 7. What unites the windcatchers of Yazd, the stepwells of Gujarat, the black hair tents of the Bedouin, and the shaded courtyards of the Mediterranean is not any single technology, but a shared underlying method, careful, patient observation of how heat actually moves through air and stone, applied consistently over many generations until it hardened into reliable, transmissible knowledge. None of these solutions arrived quickly, and none of them depended on any single brilliant inventor working in isolation. They were built up gradually, refined by trial and failure across centuries, and passed forward through builders, travelers, and families who understood, long before any formal science of thermodynamics existed, that the Earth holds its temperature more steadily than the open air, that moving air feels cooler than still air, that evaporating water draws heat away from its surroundings, and that the timing of daily life mattered just as much as the walls people built around themselves. Considered together with the parallel story of Arctic survival, the picture that emerges is a strikingly consistent one. Across every extreme environment medieval and pre-modern people encountered, whether burning desert or frozen tundra, survival depended not on overpowering the environment through force, but on understanding its underlying physical rules closely enough to work within them. The windcatcher and the igloo, the stepwell and the fur parka, the black tent and the caribou skin coat, Each represents a different regional answer to the same universal problem: how a species with a narrow tolerance for temperature managed, again and again, to make a home in places that seemed, to the unprepared, entirely unlivable. That inheritance of hard-won, closely observed knowledge, carried forward across centuries and continents, remains visible even now in the architecture of hot, dry cities around the world, a quiet testament to how much of what people once thought could only be solved by modern engineering had, in fact, already been solved, patiently and ingeniously, many hundreds of years before. Thank you for listening to our channel. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment.